Start. Okay, good evening and welcome to our June 27th meeting of the British Empire Study Group. We're very fortunate to have two meetings this month. Anyway, I want to give a special shout out to Charlie Mead. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, that wonderful logo was designed by Charlie. I want to thank him very much. He's very, very nice. And, I just love it. Closer to that date. Now, you may have noticed a couple times someone joining us, Adele. She is from the Pretoria Philatelic Society. She helps a lot of groups, but I just wanted to give a special shout out to that group because they have wonderful presentations. I think Jamie gives presentations. Ian has given presentations. So Adele, if you just want to say hi and, just if there's anything you want to say about the group, it's a great group.
Thank you for that, Joan, and welcome everybody to tonight's webinar. Ian is a wonderful speaker, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. And a shout out to all the South Africans that are here. I saw a few names I recognize, and from the UK as well. And as Joan said, I help a few societies, and we all come together free and gratis. You don't pay. Every first and third Thursday of the month, we have a Zoom meeting. We have a variety of speakers, and you're welcome to join. So if you're interested to join some of our meetings and come and have a look what it's all about, my email is up here, and Joan will circulate it as well. And enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you very much, Joan.
Well, thank you, Adele. Thank you for all you do. I think it's fantastic what you do for groups. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to tonight's speaker. And I am going to turn it over to my co-host, Robert Lutens, to introduce tonight's speaker. Robert?
Thanks so much, Joan. Welcome, everybody. Our topic this evening is entertainment tax, a global perspective with Dr. Ian Matherson. Many taxes, income tax, for example, are an involuntary and often grudging contribution to our government so that they can use or abuse the funds as they please. When a tax is imposed on entertainment, the government is usually taxing income after essential items have been paid for. Governments see it as a people-friendly taxation. However, the proprietors of the entertainment establishments don't see things in such a positive light. The tax threatens the financial viability of many entertainment ventures, and they argue that the tax diminishes the quality of life. In his presentation, Dr. Matherson shows how governments around the world are collecting these taxes by surcharging admission for this evening. Ian started life after university as a research scientist in the United Kingdom. In 1980, he accepted an offer to move to South Africa to continue with his work. Over the years, he moved from research and development to sales, then on to marketing, and finally to management consultancy, a challenge which has led him to all of the continents, except Antarctica, of course. Ian started collecting stamps in 1957 when the Federation of Malaya gained its independence, which is known there as Merdeka. He started his society membership at St. Andrews in Scotland, followed by the Falkirk Philatelic Society in Scotland, the Cardiff Philatelic Society in Wales, then to South Africa. He's been a member of numerous international study groups and societies. His present home society is with the Philatelic Society of Johannesburg. He has twice been elected president of the Philatelic Federation of South Africa and is an International Federation of Philately accredited postal history judge. Ian has won numerous medals and awards at the national and international levels for his exhibits and has also written several books. Details of Ian's awards and exhibits can be found accompanying your Zoom invitation for this evening's presentation. So, without further ado, it's my privilege to give you our esteemed presenter this evening, Dr. Ian Matherson.
Thank you, Rob. Hi, everybody. My name is Ian Matherson, and what I'm going to show you now is a section of my global collection of entertainment tax stamps. To give an indication of the growth of entertainment tax as a study topic, Let me quote some statistics. In 1980, Barefoot listed 11 entertainment tax stamps from South Africa. By 1986, that had increased to 16. By 2008, that had increased to 62. A little after that, I joined up with Andrew McClellan of the Revenue Society, and we studied the topic together. By 2012, Barefoot was listing 110. By 2017, Barefoot listed 210, up from the original 11 in 1980. We published a book on the topic, and we're still studying and finding new stamps that haven't been recorded. Shortly afterwards, we've published a similar book on the entertainment tax stamps of India. This was a trigger for me to go global. It seemed a great topic. I contacted John Barefoot, who said he knew nobody else collecting the same subject as a speciality. Many countries had participated in this, so it was going to be good fun. I thought entertainment tax stamps are mementos of good times. Your favorite show, your first date. But unfortunately, these little tickets that we get thrown away. They're not like deeds of transfer or powers of attorney or certified documents which we file away. The ticket you got at the cinema usually ends up in the bin, so it became a very difficult topic. What you see here is a selection of stamps from various countries of the world. You will see we have stamps from countries, stamps from provinces, and many towns also issued entertainment tax stamps. What I had thought was a cameo of Happy Days was only one side of the coin, though. When we say entertainment's tax, it is a tax. And the people who are putting on the show have to pay that tax, or they have to bill the clients. And so it didn't get a universal happy response. In fact, all around the world, we found a serious backlash to the tax in many, many different countries. What you see here are cuttings and articles from various countries. The complaints, however, seem to bear no fruit. This graph here shows data, entertainment tax revenue collected in the United States. And you'll see from 1977 to 2017 that the growth has been inexorable. Here's another reason why people didn't like to collect this topic. In many countries, the standard practice is to tear the ticket in half to show that it's been used, and attention is given to actually tearing the stamp in half so it cannot be reused. So we see here examples from India, Israel, and Thailand. Governments love raising money, it would appear, and they tax the people to pay for their own pet projects. Very often, it's to go to war or to defend themselves. Napoleon's objectives were somewhat more honorable. In 1677, the acting trade in Paris levied the entertainment charges to raise money to accommodate medical attention for the poor. This was the precursor of the droit de pauvre, the right of the poor, the first entertainment tax. Napoleon signed it into law in 1809. It was subsequently updated in 1816. The law documents are shown here. In 1909, the Syndicate of Paris Theatre Directors had stamps printed to make it easier for them to conduct their accounting and to levy the 10% tax on tickets. They applied the stamps to each ticket. What we see here is a corner block of the stamps, usage on a ticket, and a training ticket. The stamps cancelled, annulé, cancelled, were used to train the staff in the theatres in how to collect the tax and sell the tickets. As we said earlier, there is always a backlash. The first picture here is an etching, an engraving from a book, and it shows the happy dispensing of the benefits to the poor people. But the right-hand half of this picture shows a trade magazine where the staff of the magazine, or the editorial staff, are fighting against the tax, and they're actually reporting on what has happened in the legislation that particular month. Several countries introduced a similar tax. I'm aware of a tax from Switzerland, from Egypt, but the only other country I've seen that actually issued stamps for it is French Morocco. There may be others, but I haven't seen them yet. Another benevolent introduction of an entertainment tax was in Russia. In the 18th century, Empress Maria Fyodorovna, the second wife of Tsar Paul, opened institutions for the poor. They were for orphans, for fallen women, for people who needed help. And she funded it with a tax on entertainment. These were known as Empress Maria's institutions. A different Maria Fyodorovna, the following century, the wife of Tsar Nicholas III, introduced stamps. Well, she didn't personally, in 1892 to affix to entertainment tickets. What we see here is a full sheet of the second issue of the entertainment tax stamps. Once again, the stamps were torn in half to denote use. These tickets here range from the first ticket on the page and the second ticket, which are from the first set through to later sets. You'll see the surcharges on a couple of the tickets because of the inflationary times in Russia leading up to the Russian Revolution. As we discussed earlier, some countries issued entertainment tax stamps, but also many towns and provinces. These examples here, the first set is from Irkutsk and the second set from Saratov. The stamps were designed in such a way, as were the national stamps, that if you tore the stamp in half, you still had the value denoted on each half. Russia was not a happy place after the revolution of 1917. Lenin's model wasn't working. Millions died of starvation. The state thought they could take over industry, and it didn't work. The influence of Karl Marx was so important here. He explained that the socialism, the communism, still needed money. And so there was a transition period, what they called the new economic policy, where some private concerns continued to operate. However, when Stalin took over, this was cut to a halt and everything was nationalized. These two tickets here, very rare, show tickets from 1925 and 1930 from the Moscow State Theatre, again with the entertainment tax stamps torn in half. Now we're going to start looking at the stamps of the world, starting at the left-hand side in my atlas. So the first country I look at is Canada. Canada didn't use adhesive stamps for the purpose. They issued tickets. And when you visited a show, you had to buy your ticket to pay the tax, and the proprietor had to arrange for a receptacle to collect the used tickets afterwards so that they could be destroyed. The dates on these tickets I've worked out because the legislation is summarized on the back and signed by the current government minister. And by looking up the dates that the government ministers were serving, we can identify these as 1916, 1920, and then Alberta, 1918. Obviously, taxes that were introduced to pay for the war effort. Now here are stamps from a different war. In 1929, Royal Dutch Shell discovered oil in Paraguay. In 1929, Standard Oil similarly discovered oil in Bolivia, both in the Chaco region. And both Bolivia and Paraguay wanted 100% of the benefit. The Chaco Wars ensued. 36,000 Paraguayans died, and they variously report 56,000 to 65,000 Bolivians. In the end, most of the Chaco was awarded to Paraguay. Both governments, Bolivia and Paraguay, were overthrown immediately after the war. But the kick is that commercially viable oil deposits were only found for the first time in 2012. So the war was futile. On these stamps here, they're perforated specimen, and you'll see espectáculos públicos at the top, meaning public shows. And these were levying a tax on public shows to pay for the Chaco Wars. This is a selection of stamps from Brazil, issued immediately after World War II. One can only speculate that this was to fund the rebuilding efforts after the war. Now we visit Barbados. If one consults the textbooks, Edmund Bailey says that in 1942, 480,000 stamps were overprinted for levying an entertainment tax. There is no evidence that the tax was ever applied, and it is believed that all were destroyed apart from a handful of essays, which you see here. So the essays show the overprint entertainment tax in different fonts on the stamps of Barbados, issued during World War II, again presumably to raise money for the war effort. Here's another interesting story. Looking at Southern Ireland, the entertainment tax stamps were inscribed, and I don't know the pronunciation, Mal Ionkum. But after the war, an effort was made to rationalize the Gaelic language, to address a few inconsistencies in spelling, and the we can see here that the later ones are inscribed Ionkam. Next stop in our travels is Great Britain. The entertainment tax stamps from UK were inscribed excise revenue, which sounds like a tax on liquor or cigarettes or whatever. I was so pleased when a dealer found that colour trial shown on the left here, because it was actually inscribed entertainment stamps. I said to the dealer I wanted to buy it. I sent him the money. A few weeks later, he sent me an apology. He said, "I'm going to have to return your money. I cannot find the document." Now, I really wanted this document because it didn't call it excise revenue, it called it entertainment tax. And I said, no, keep the money, I'm sure you'll find it. And a long time later, he wrote to me and said, "You're in luck, I found it." It was on the bed of a scanner which I never use. I had used it temporarily because someone else was using the normal scanner. So eventually I got the document. These particular stamps, the color trials, are dated 1931. That was just before HM Stationery Office took over the printing of the excise revenue stamps. On the right-hand side, you see what we call government tickets. It was a hassle sticking a stamp to every cinema ticket. And you could make a plan with the authorities. You would buy these tickets, and that first one, 7p, for example, was the entry fee for the show, of which 1 penny was the tax, and the tax stamp was printed on the ticket. These are known as government tickets. The one at the bottom is a particularly interesting one. It says transfer, because if you were in a cheap seat and you wanted to upgrade, you wanted to move into the grandstand at the soccer match, you wanted to move to the balcony for the concert, you then paid extra admission fee, but there was a tax on the extra admission fee, and the transfer ticket was given to you to cover the tax on the increased admission fee. Here are a few other interesting items from Great Britain. On the right-hand side, we see a notice. This notice had to be displayed in the foyer of any establishment that was not using adhesive stamps or government tickets. And it was a permit from the authorities, the commissioners, that you were issuing tickets which were accountable. In other words, the seats were marked on the ticket, or alternatively, there were consecutive numbered tickets on rolls. So you could be audited to see how many tickets you had sold, and then once a week, you had to make a statement and pay your money to the authorities to catch up on your tax for the week. The ticket at the top left is what we call a roll ticket. These tickets were on rolls. You'll see the price. It says 5 shillings including tax. And the ticket has a serial number on it. The two halves are different because these are two different half tickets. When the ticket was used, it was torn in half. So I've managed to match two halves of the same ticket together, albeit from different original tickets. But that was the ticket that was given to the client before the theatre had to make their weekly statement. The second one shows a typical theatre ticket at the time, where the seat numbers are shown and the price includes tax, which is stated on the ticket. The ticket at bottom left is another interesting one. Before the FA Cup continued after the war, they played what they called the War Cup in England. The War Cup, in fact, was 2 legs, and so was the aggregate score. But during the war, the tax rates were going up so fast to fund the war effort, and this particular ticket has been overprinted, new price, including increased tax, 6 shillings, because the tax rate increased after the original tickets had been printed. The next country on our world tour is Spain. The 3 tickets at the top were actually issued before the Spanish Civil War, and so they have nothing to do with the war, although occasionally it has been reported that they are fundraising efforts for the war. These tickets were issued in Valencia, and you'll see once again, as we saw from Bolivia, it reads Espectáculos Públicos on the top, public shows. So these were tax tickets for shows. The tickets at the bottom were issued during the Spanish Civil War. And these were fundraisers issued in Granada. They're also similarly inscribed. The first one says Especial para Espectáculo, which is especially for shows. And the next two say Especial para Espectáculos, plural. Now we get to Italy. Italy started issuing entertainment tax stamps at the start of World War I. You'll see the first set was overprinted cinema. I've got one there with inverted overprint. I've never seen another of those. But these stamps were meant to be used on cinema tickets, as you see at the bottom right of the page. However, I've also found them used as general revenue stamps. When local documents had to be certified and they went to the local office, if they only had cinema stamps, they used cinema stamps. The stamp at the bottom left is from the following set. In Switzerland, individual cities issued their own tax stamps. Here we have the tax stamps from Lausanne and Cheny. So the stamps were issued by the city. The canton issued stamps, but not for entertainment tax, and the country issued revenue stamps, but not for entertainment tax. So there was only a single tax stamp applied in each city. Now we're in the city of Budapest in Hungary. These are local stamps for entertainment. The translation of the inscription is gladness tax, happiness tax, whatever. I've been unable to find out anything about these, despite even writing to a couple of people in Hungary. So obviously they're not very well known even there. They were issued immediately after World War I, presumably as a fundraiser to rebuild after the war. These tax stamps were issued in Romania. According to Barefoot's catalogue of Bulgaria and Romania, it is about 1920. So yet again, they're probably for fundraising after the war. The inscription translates as theatre tax on each of the stamps here. Germany also applied an entertainment tax. But the entertainment tax payment was denoted by a logo, usually hand-stamped, on each ticket. So these stamps here, which are inscribed film or theatre, were not entertainment tax stamps. I have a selection of documents bearing these, and these are documents for rental of movies and other aspects of the business, but not for admission to a show. Finland was another country to issue stamps to raise funds during World War I. They didn't issue specific entertainment tax stamps, although postage stamps are known with a perforation through the middle of the stamp to make it easier to tear the stamp in half if it was applied to a ticket. These tickets here each have certificates with them of authenticity, and they show the postage stamps used on admission tickets. Now we're moving south to Africa. Tunisia experienced a serious drought in 1937, and they had to raise money to pay for drought relief. One of the moves to raise cash was introduction of an entertainment tax. The existing postage stamps were overprinted Solidarité, and this paid a contribution towards the drought relief. You'll see here examples showing 3 different values with the Solidarité overprint. Egypt. introduced amusements tax in Cairo in 1933. They did not, however, produce stamps for the event. They produced revenue stamps for so many other related events, but not for the payment of entertainment tax. You'll see here examples of tickets with a hand stamp denoting payment of the amusements tax. This was the preferred use instead of actually printing tax stamps. These Egypt stamps here are described as cinema tax stamps, but this is not a tax on admission. I have examples of censor application forms where the fee for censorship is paid with these stamps. I've got film rental fees paid with these stamps. I've even got these stamps used for displaying posters to advertise upcoming movies. So they were used for payment of tax by the cinema industry, but they were not used for payment of tax on admission. The stamps on the left are inscribed United Arab Republic in Arabic, and the pairs on the right are inscribed Arab Republic of Egypt, also in Arabic. I've seen on eBay mixed sets being offered because obviously the vendor doesn't realize there are differences in the Arabic. Several countries in the Middle East in 1948 issued stamps to raise funds to support the Palestinian people. Egypt was no exception. These stamps here were raising money for the Palestine Fund, and the use of the tickets was obligatory when you bought a cinema ticket. So you bought a cinema ticket and one of these stamps to denote that you had made your contribution to the Palestine Fund. Now we move further south in Africa to Southwest Africa, today known as Namibia. Southwest Africa introduced entertainment tax in 1931. The first stamps were overprints on stamps of Southwest Africa or South Africa. The stamps of Southwest Africa and South Africa at the time were printed in Satanet pairs, English and Afrikaans. What we see here is a pair of South African stamps, one inscribed in English and one in Afrikaans, each overprinted for use as entertainment tax. In this particular case, the entertainment tax overprint is bilingual. Now we move further south to South Africa. Entertainment tax stamps in South Africa were issued by each of the provinces: Transvaal, Cape, Orange Free State, and Natal. Natal was the first to issue stamps in 1917. This set I show here is probably the rarest set issued by Natal and was issued during the Second World War. We call this the numeral issue for obvious reasons. They were locally printed, probably because of supply chain challenges during the war. There's no more than a couple of each of these recorded, and if any of you out there have copies, I'd love to have scans, information, duplicate copies, or whatever. The Orange Free State issued stamps and government tickets. The government tickets were probably more commonly used than the stamps themselves. Each set of stamps can be differentiated by the D of pence. There's a small d, very small d, large D, capital D. But the shilling values, we have no idea where they belong because there was no D. So here I show three of the higher values, the shilling values, from the Orange Free State, showing the orange tree in the center. The Cape introduced entertainment tax in 1918, and the tax continued for many years, right after decimalization in 1961. So here we have a full sheet of the 4-cent decimal value from the Cape. When ordering stamps from the post office in South Africa, in the 1960s, several recipients reported that their envelopes had card stiffeners which had been cut from what appeared to be booklets for entertainment tax stamps. However, nobody had reported seeing such a booklet. It was only after our book had been published that we were able to lay our hands on an actual example which had residue of some of the stamps within the booklet. This is the booklet that proves that the booklets were actually issued. Until this date, we thought that they had been scrapped. Transvaal was the last province to introduce entertainment tax stamps. These stamps here were issued from 1931 when the tax came into use. It's interesting that the province with the most commercial activity, most theatres and cinemas, should be the rarest source of entertainment tax stamps. The reason is probably because all the establishments had permits allowing them to include the tax in the cost of the ticket, and the ticket was printed inclusive of tax. These stamps are therefore very rare. South Africans. The first one from the Orange Free State with a printed impression of the revenue stamp across the perforation. They were also printed with the revenue stamp printed not across the perforation. The ticket on the right is a government ticket from Transvaal. In this case, there is no impression of a stamp, but it fulfilled the same purpose. The Transvaal government tickets were printed as triptychs in 3 parts, but usually only one part was given to the client. In this case, 2 parts have been applied to seal this theatre program, and when the program was opened, they tore through the entertainment tax stamp. It is the only usage I've ever seen of the entertainment tax tickets as stamps. Now we move to Asia, to Palestine. Entertainment tax stamps were only printed in Palestine much later, but the tax was introduced about 1920. The earliest usage I have seen is 1921. These tickets here are dated a little later, and they show Palestine general revenue stamps on the left used as entertainment tax stamps, and on the right we see postage stamps from Palestine used as entertainment tax stamps. From 1936, municipalities in Palestine were permitted to levy entertainment tax as well. So what we see here is examples of tickets where we have a Palestine revenue stamp paying the state tax, and we have municipal entertainment tax stamps paying the municipal tax. So the stamps had to be applied twice to cover the total tax due. After 1948, the municipal tax stamps continued to be used, but obviously Palestine stamps were replaced by Israel stamps. Israel only issued a single set of entertainment tax stamps. That's the stamps that are shown here, but they were very, very rarely used. In fact, one probably sees as many usages of it on documents of other types as general revenue stamps. Israel used ordinary revenue stamps until they discontinued the use of stamps. Many municipalities issued their own entertainment tax stamps, and it makes for an interesting field of study. The only book that describes these was published in 1987 and is seriously dated, so there's great scope for someone to publish another more up-to-date study. What I show here is 3 local stamps from Jaffa and 3 stamps from Pardes Hana. As we move further east, we reach Iraq. The first entertainment tax stamps for Iraq were normal revenue stamps, as you see on the ticket on the left-hand side. The tax was introduced in 1922, but the earliest recorded ticket is from the early 1930s. Eventually, Iraq issued the Malahi stamps, which you see on the right, which were specific entertainment tax stamps. The original set was imperf, and later sets were perforated. There were also local stamps issued by several of the municipalities. They are also very rare. Continuing our journey to the east, we reach Pakistan. Prior to 1947, Pakistan was a part of India and issued its own Indian states revenue stamps. The first stamp I show here is from Northwest Frontier Province, today a part of Pakistan, in those days a part of India. Northwest Frontier Province is the area including the Swat Valley, and it borders on Afghanistan. The entertainment tax stamp here is one of a set which we have found probably used in the early 1940s. The tickets on the right have an interesting history. I bought 3 tickets some years ago, each with a half stamp on. By putting 2 half stamps together, we see that they are Punjab stamps, overprinted West Punjab. The textbooks up till then believed that the Punjab stamps were issued in India from 1948. We now know that these Punjab stamps were issued in Punjab, which covered part of Pakistan and part of India, before independence. I have a telegram where the printers in India notify the Pakistan authorities that they are sending some of the old Punjab stamps to Pakistan to use. We see here that Pakistan overprinted them West Punjab. A Facebook page that I'm a member of indicated that no one else had ever seen any other stamps in this set. This is a more modern ticket, and it shows the stamps of Pakistan used to pay the entertainment tax. Pakistan was still using entertainment tax stamps well into the current century, and may be one of the only territories to do so. India introduced entertainment tax in the 1920s. What we see here at the left are Indian stamps overprinted for use in Bengal, and on the right for use in Bombay. Around the same time, King George V, a set of stamps was issued by Bombay inscribed entertainment tax, as you see here. We've never seen any of these used on a ticket yet. Here I show another Indian state, the United Provinces. The first example is a ticket to a football match in 1938, showing George V stamps overprinted UP Entertainment, standing for United Provinces. United Provinces, now known as Uttar Pradesh, issued a later set, which you see at the bottom. The state of Tamil Nadu issued legislation which they called the Local Authorities Act, and this empowered local authorities to levy taxes on entertainment for their own purposes. So at the top right you see a stamp from Madras inscribed Local Authorities, and bottom left a stamp from Pudukkottai inscribed Local Authorities. Both of these authorities were in the state of Tamil Nadu. The legislation was repealed in the early 1940s, and the word local authorities was deleted on the Madras stamps with a series of obliterators. Remaining in India, we see here 3 stamps from Madhya Pradesh, issued in the 1960s for entertainment tax. In 1971, East Pakistan waged a war of independence to try and break free from West Pakistan. As a consequence of the war, over 2 million refugees are reported to have moved across the border into India, putting significant strain on the Indian authorities. To subsidize the relief effort, the Indian government introduced a refugee relief tax comprising 5 paise on every letter and 10 paise on every revenue document. Now, the printer's waste on the right is overprinted refugee relief. However, there are 20 paise stamps, more than was needed for the tax. We don't believe these stamps were ever issued, but were 5 and 10 paise stamps in the same set issued? We don't know. Anyway, East Pakistan later became Bangladesh, and most of the refugees returned home. The language in Bangladesh is Bengali. When they issued their first entertainment tax stamps, maybe as a gesture of solidarity with their newfound independence, everything on the stamp was in Bengali, even the numerals. To make it easier for the printers to know what on earth they had, an inscription was applied in the upper margin, which reads entertainment tax stamps and then the face value. So this sheet of stamps here, the only English inscription is in the top margin. Thailand introduced entertainment tax in 1892, but they didn't issue stamps for the purpose. During World War II, Thailand was occupied by Japan. One of the demands from the Japanese was that Thailand should pay all expenses of the occupational force from Japan. To raise funds, they deemed even hotel bills to be entertainment, and the entertainment tax was applied on them as well. The last country in my show today is Australia. And here I show stamps from a set of government tickets that were issued after World War II. You can see on the right the staple is still there. They were in booklets. Finally, I show a selection of postcards showing the way society took the mickey out of the entertainment tax. Thank you very much. I'm open for questions.
Oh, Ian, that was fabulous. I never even really suspected that people put taxes on entertainment. I guess you pay it, but you just don't realize it.
I've got a section on USA taxes as well.
Oh, thank you very much. I have file drawers full of USA taxes. Anyway, but thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Rob Lutens right now if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. I don't see many questions, but I have a bunch of questions, but I'm going to bring people over. Rob, if you have some things, there was so much. It was fabulous. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, that was really interesting, Ian. That's an area of philately I just have no experience with whatsoever. If somebody was just getting into trying to collect this, where would they look for material?
That is the key question, because, whatever you collect, the experts, the old lags, recommend you buy a foundation collection. You want to collect Mexico, they recommend you look for a basic Mexico collection. But no one offers ever a basic entertainment tax collection, because if you specialize even in the revenue stamps of any country, this is just a small section. It's like collecting postmarks from post offices beginning with the letter L. It's just such a subsection of a topic. But by making it a global study, I find it a lot more interesting, but it was really difficult to get started.
Yeah, I can imagine material's probably not easy to come across.
A huge number of the things we have, we've only ever seen one of. In fact, next week I'm giving a talk on the Punjab, and about half the stamps that I'm showing, my co-author and I have only ever seen once.
Mm-hmm. What references are available for this field other than Barefoot?
Well, India, there's a book, Blat and Mullah, but that's on Indian revenues. And so for any country that's published a book on revenues, then, half of one page is of importance to the collector. But there's no one collecting it as entertainment tax. My partner and I, or my friend and I, from the Revenue Society, we've written books on South Africa and India, but we both collect from East Africa. We both collect from Southwest Africa. I'm showing Israel entertainment tax at our national this year. I've had awards for Russian entertainment tax, a full exhibit, and French entertainment tax. But most countries, it's a handful of stamps.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. I've never seen that type of material available. That's why I was asking.
I hardly see it
the
either.
normal areas, if you go on eBay or whatever, you know what you find there.
Yep.
So finding these stamps attached to a document or whatever else, does this increase the value on it compared to, say, a mint copy or an unused copy?
Well, I would far prefer to find half a stamp on a ticket to finding a mint stamp. But generally, I try and get both.
Okay.
If possible.
Yeah, you took us.
In the old days, people were used to soaking stamps off their envelopes. And so if your document had half a stamp on, who's going to keep that?
Yeah, right. Adele, it looks like you have a question.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Ian, that Barbados block of stamps that you had with the different fonts of
Yes.
the print of entertainment tax, are those hand stamps that were applied there, or did it go through a machine? Because it's just amazing that you've got next to each other the different ones, and then one totally perpendicular to the other. So
Yeah, they look as if they're hand stamps, they're not perfectly aligned.
Okay.
I believe there is one other block somebody's got from the same batch, and I've never seen it, so I don't know if it's the same overprint types or not.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Ian, do you run into any forgeries in this area?
I beg your pardon?
Do you ever see any forgeries?
No, I don't think I have from anywhere. Oh, but wait a minute. From India, I managed to get out of the back door of a printing establishment a few part sheets of color trials that should have been in the archives. They're difficult to mount. I've got them on A2 pages at the moment. And my co-author has found 3 tickets in England where the tickets have actually been taxed with imperf stamps in unissued colors from the same color trials. So that's the nearest thing to a forgery, something that's come out the back door of the printer and actually been used to save tax. That's from West Bengal.
Interesting. Okay.
But you know, when there's no collectors, people are not going to forge.
True. True. Where do you find the most material from? Is there any one area that has more than anywhere else?
Every day I go to eBay and I look up entertainment tax, and about once every 6 months I find a new stamp. I get from Del Campe as well. But if you're one of the few collectors, people get to know you. And people contact me and say, I've got this. Usually, do you want it? Sometimes I don't even pay for it because it's an old cinema ticket or something, and they can't find it in a catalog. But most of it is word of mouth. When we started collecting the South African entertainment tax, as we said, there were only 11 in Barefoot in 1980. But once people started to collect it, what they were saying was, I've got a collection of stamps. I've had it since I was a kid, and I've got 2 entertainment tax stamps at the back of the book. Now, with 2 stamps, you've never got enough even to make up 1 frame or 1 page. But once you've got one person who collects it, he will take those 2 stamps and those 2 stamps and that 1 stamp. And eventually, we're now at 230 or something altogether, different stamps recorded. And most of them have come one at a time.
Yeah. We've got a question from James Hildreth. He's wondering about the gladness tax and its stamp. Could you speak a little bit more about that one?
Yeah, those are the stamps from Budapest. Because I don't know experts in many countries, the practice started when I started collecting Russian entertainment tax stamps. And what I did is I went to eBay and Del Campe, and I looked at every vendor who was selling stamps, but based in those countries. And I wrote to them all, purporting to have a question about what they were selling. But actually, I didn't. I said, actually, I don't want that. But do you know anything about theater tax, entertainment tax? And 95% of them dismissed me as a crank. And a few people became regular correspondents. And they were saying, yeah, whenever we go to a stamp fair in our country, I look around, and if I find anything, I tell you. And I've now got quite a nice collection of Russian stuff. Well, when I got those Budapest stamps, I translated them using Google Translate. But then I wrote to a number of Hungarians who were selling stamps and based in Hungary. And I said, I've got these stamps. What the heck are they? couple of people wrote back and said, I don't know, and everyone else ignored me. So that's all I know about them. Wolfgang Morschek in Germany told me he thought they were issued about 1920.
Very interesting.
We have a question from Richard Benjamin. He says, hello, it was a wonderful presentation, and I have to agree with that. It seems that the focus of the entertainment tax is on events more so than products, with some possible overlap. For instance, the British tax on TV sets was not included. In the USA, I thought of playing cards and beer, but again, products instead of an event. I'm wondering if you could cite any examples of USA entertainment tax stamps.
No, they didn't issue entertainment tax stamps, but they added it to their tickets. And during the war, they called it a war tax. And several of the theaters explained that the tax on their tickets was an entertainment tax that was going to the war effort. And so there was a backlash. But it's generally just like a sales tax on tickets. And most of them just say, ticket price and tax. But during the war tax was actually described as an entertainment tax.
Okay.
I see a
Fred
question from Fred Pritchard at the top there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious that in your presentation you had the early times around the turn of the century, 1900s, most of the taxes were charged for entertainment for wealthy people going to operas or all those things. Yet you had some stuff from later times, of course, in the 70s, 80s. So there seems to be two periods of time where entertainment tax served different purposes. I mean, it clearly was in the early time to be a way of taxing wealthy people to support war effort or whatever, or the poor or whatever. But later, it's a general tax that we pay. We go to the movies or the theaters today, and we pay it on our tickets, but we don't pay a stamp, of course, for it. So, can you comment a little bit on the difference in time between the motivation for a stamp tax then and the tax today? It seems to be the same. Well, maybe it's not the same motivation for taxing then as now. But anyway, that's what caught my attention.
Yeah, I think Russia demonstrates that nicely. The early stuff went to Princess Maria's institutions, but the tickets that I've got are tickets for Moscow State Theater, the tickets for the Bolshoi Ballet. As you say, these were taxes on the rich to subsidize the poor. In 1916, my tickets are actually overprinted war tax. And so it doesn't say Princess Maria's institutions anymore. It was to try and defend them from the Bolsheviks. So already in Russia, it had moved. But if we look at society in general, when Eva was young, people didn't go internationally on holiday very often. Now people go to neighboring states. I know from UK, they'll go to Spain, they'll go to Greece or whatever. They go skiing holidays. People do more. And so they do. They go to the cinema, they go to theater. And these are all discretionary spends. It's not survival spend. And so that money is no longer ring-fenced for the poor. This is ring-fenced for the national fiscus. Frank. I see you at the top, Frank, but I can't hear. I don't know if you're muted.
One of the things that I noticed locally, I live in Florida, and one of the things that used to be taxed was the dog track. You go to the dog track.
Oh, okay.
To view it, and I have several of them from Florida, in which there's a tax added on your ticket. It says,
In UK,
and
yeah.
Florida tax, entertainment tax. So Florida had a tax on when you went to the dog track, or you went to this, show or that
Yeah.
thing. But it's
Yeah.
always added onto the ticket. So one of the places that I have found to find these various odd taxes is at a paper ephemera shows, not stamp shows, but paper ephemera shows.
I've got a number of tickets
like
similarly, yes.
So,
yeah, in UK, the excise revenue stamps, I showed the government tickets where the stamp is printed on the ticket. The same stamp was printed on betting tickets. So it wasn't entry to the horse race, but it was on the bets that you placed. But I've had to put some sort of a barrier on this, otherwise the scope just balloons out of control. I've got a friend in India who finds stuff for me, and he was trying to get me to buy tax stamps for radio licenses, saying, well, surely that's entertainment. I said, yeah, maybe it is, but I've got to curb it somehow.
yep. All right. Good job.
Thank you. Len, hi. Len Stanway, I see you at the top there.
Hello, Ian.
Hi.
Fascinating talk. I noticed in the title you displayed one of the Singapore entertainment tax stamps. The wartime issues of FMS and straight settlements are relatively easy to obtain, but do you ever see any of the Singapore ones? We know lots were issued, but
there was a Singapore tax stamp. There was an article in, was it the Revenue Journal?
right, yeah,
That's just come out.
yeah.
Also, George James at Stanley Gibbons offered me some proof material of the modern Singapore stuff about a month ago.
Right.
And my response to him was, I'll never find enough modern Singapore stuff to make even a single frame exhibit. And so I'll stick with the stamps I've got, and he can find somebody else to buy the proof material.
All right. That answers the question.
Well, yes, that was it. Well, it was going up into 4 figures, and I thought for a collection I'll never display, I might as well put it down the drain.
Yeah, I've been collecting Singapore now for over 60 years, and I still haven't got any.
Oh, I've got a few, but you say the wartime ones are easy to get? I haven't found that. You mean the entertainment duty, the small format ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, from straight settlements and federated Malay states.
They're not easy, but they can be obtained. Usually,
yeah, an interesting
in
aspect is that at the beginning of the war, there was a military concession. And so the tickets sold at the beginning of the war, 1939, if you were in the military, you paid less, and this is shown on the tickets. But I don't have any tickets with stamps on. I've got tickets which say military concession, admission, entertainment tax, and the gross payment.
I think there were 3 values of each produced, which should take that into account. But whether they were ever used,
I've never seen them on a ticket.
No, I know that they certainly promulgated it.
Yeah, and you get them with and without specimen overprint. Is it specimen? That there's an overprint on them. I can't remember.
Some of them were overprinted for use as other types of revenue.
Were they? Okay. Yeah, that was the case for, well, I just bought a stamp from Togo this week and a stamp from Ivory Coast, which were repurposed to general revenue stamps.
Yeah. Thank you.
Jerry Petrowski from Brampton. You have a question?
Not really a question, more of a comment. I think Ian mentioned that in Russia, the Maria Fedorovna was involved in doing the entertainment tax stamps for the poor. She
Yes.
also, just as a point of reference, she was also the one of the patrons of the Russian Red Cross, and she was very involved in providing mail services for prisoners of war, which has really nothing to do with the entertainment tax, but it's probably the same person.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure she had a heart of gold with other people's money, like a lot of do-good politicians.
Yeah, and
Um,
my notes on the thing, because I'm interested in some of the things she did, was she was the former Princess Dagmar of Denmark.
Okay, I made a mistake in my reading there. I noticed that I said Tsar Nicholas instead of Tsar Alexander III, but it's the same lady.
Yeah, this would be in 1914 era. So
Yeah, in 1916, as I said, the money was no longer directed to Princess Maria's institutions. After the revolution, there were a few local entertainment tax stamps published, and then the RSFSR, the new Russian Federation, the sort of fledgling USSR, in about 1925, it passed new legislation where the entertainment tax was from then being paid to the Red Cross. So I've got tickets where the money was directed to Red Cross from the. Are we done?
Is that me or is that Ian freezing? Was it just me?
Ian, you froze there for me as well. If you
Am
can
I
just
unfrozen
repeat your
again?
answer. If you can just
Am I
repeat your
unfrozen or
answer.
still frozen?
No, you're unfrozen now.
Okay.
We've got a question from Bill Arrow. He wants to know if the Netherlands ever issued any of these revenues.
No, Netherlands issued a tax stamp if you wanted to make an advance booking on a theater ticket. You paid tax for the privilege of making an advance booking. A lot of Netherlands tickets have tax added, but I don't know if it was an entertainment tax or just a general sales tax. I don't know. I've got a bunch of them, but I don't have information. But there was a specific stamp for a tax on advanced theater bookings.
All right.
Ian, does anyone still use these revenue stamps to collect tax?
The latest I've seen was Pakistan in the about 10 years ago. But, you know, when I showed you those figures from United States, they're still collecting the tax up to 2017 in my graph. They're just not using stamps because stamps is such a hassle.
Yeah, I wonder why someone would use stamps to collect
Oh,
tax.
terrible. I've got pictures of rolls of stamps with rolls of tickets with a stamp stuck on every one. So some employee has had to stick a stamp on every ticket and then they've sold them at the cinema. And I've got tickets with 7, 8, 9 stamps on a single ticket.
Interesting.
Now, this may, at the risk of being risque, I heard there's a brothel tax.
Yes, that was in Rosario in Argentina.
Okay.
I guess that's entertainment as well, in its own way. It was a tax on the prostitutes, and the tax paid for the department that conducted the health tests on them. So it was basically a medical aid insurance, and they had books where they paid for the tax and they stuck the stamps in the books. It was just the city of Rosario on the east coast of Argentina.
Ingo.
At the top, I see on my screen.
Hi, I live in Canada, and several years ago, Canada legalized the sale of cannabis for recreational purposes. And they do collect excise tax on that, but it's implemented through the provincial governments. So we have 10 provinces and 2 territories that collect excise tax on the sales of marijuana. And they have stamps that are the same stamp for all the territories, but each one has its own name in it. So you've got 12 new stamps to collect from the sale of cannabis in Canada. And the of course, the really rare ones are from the northern territories like Nunavut and Yukon, because they only have one store in each territory.
Okay, many countries have done the same. My wife is from Honduras, and we were at a stamp exhibition in Seoul in South Korea, and she was under much pressure to start collecting stamps as well, something she had very little interest in. And because everyone was saying, oh, Honduras, that's where all the cocaine comes from. And I see the ex-Honduran president got 45 years in the jug this week. Anyway, she decided, that's in USA, he was arrested and extradited to USA. But we put together over the next 3 months of quite an extensive collection of drug stuff. But then we realized the topic is too big. And so it's in one of my forgotten corners here.
It can also be considered consumption tax as opposed to entertainment tax.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be a popular talk, right? Let's talk about drugs.
But you know, some of the stuff I've had, I've got a telegram.
We'll get people into philately that way, Ian.
Yeah, I got a telegram that was given to a conductor on a train in India. And the telegram had been sent to an Indian railway station. When the train came into the station, they passed this to the conductor, and the conductor was told, there's a man on your train, he's going to get out in Delhi, but we want you to stop him from running away, basically, because we're going to arrest him because we know he's carrying opium. And I've got the telegram from the authorities.
That's cool.
Duncan at the top, I see your hand, but not your face. Oh, there you are.
Yes, Anne-Marine Triggle was the famous collector of the Rosario entertainment stamps.
Yes, so is Norman Banfield's wife.
Ah.
Norman's in New Zealand. But I've never been tempted into that as an offshoot of entertainment tax.
Okay.
Great.
Yes, we'll put my hand down and put the mute on.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it looks like it's going to rain here. Ian, it must be really late where you are. It's like,
yeah, it's 1:22.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for staying up so late. Well, everyone is from South Africa. Dell is.
Well, you know, my wife is 8 hours behind us. She's working in Central America right now. And so time is just an artificial concept to me, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I guess if you didn't stay up for your wife, that would be not a.
Well, she finishes work at like 5 or 6, and very often gives me a call at the end of it to talk about what she did for the day and tomorrow's plans. And so I often go to bed at 2:30 or 3 o'clock and get up at 11. My friends just think I'm bone idle because they don't know, but what the heck?
That's fun.
Talking about time, I think we're also close to the cricket starting, isn't it?
No, there's no cricket tonight. The cricket finished. England was hammered by India. And I watched the cricket this morning at 2:30. I was awake. Yesterday morning. And I watched the whole game. And South Africa beat Afghanistan, and they're playing India in the final on Saturday.
Saturday. Thank you.
Oh, wow. They had a cricket tax?
Not yet, but you never know. Don't talk too loudly.
Well, is there anything else for Ian? This is fabulous. I never even knew this type of, this area existed.
No.
Probably because when you see a stamp torn in half, it's, you sit there and say,
Yeah, it's not the sort of stuff that collectors are trained to collect. Because it's not a true bisect.
Yeah, true.
Oh gosh. Live and learn. It's interesting. So if you are thinking of giving a presentation, but you are a little bit reluctant to be on the spot at that moment, the recordings are a perfect way to share your knowledge and your material without being, having that nervousness of being, you're on, and oh my gosh, what happens if this, that, and the other thing. So Adele has really pioneered that with a bunch of people, and it's, I think
it's
it's
good.
wonderful.
Okay, folks, are we done?
Oh. Something
Okay,
that-
everybody.
Thank you.
Adele, Joan, Rob, thank you for your assistance to get to where we are now.
Thank you so much, Ian. It was wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, dokes. Enjoy your debate on TV.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Okay, good night.